Do you notice anything
merry.
different? Yeah? Ho, ho, ho.
Eamonn Holmes and Ruth Langsford were together for 14 solid years in the public eye. They looked steady, familiar, almost untouchable. But in 2024, it all collapsed, and the marriage quietly slipped away. They split, went their separate ways, and for a moment, it seemed like the story was finished. Since then, Ruth's version shaped the headlines. Her side filled the papers and framed how people saw the breakup. Eamonn stayed silent. No interviews, no corrections, no pushback, nothing. Until now. At 66, Holmes is finally speaking, and what he's saying shifts the whole mood of the story. It changes how the split looks, and how Ruth comes across in the aftermath. So what did Eamonn Holmes actually say, and why wait this long? To understand that, you have to go back, way before the headlines and polished statements, to the start of his journey. Long before the fame, Holmes was just a Belfast schoolboy learning how to command attention. He studied at Holy Family Primary School, then St. Malachy's College, and later the Dublin College of Business Studies. Nothing flashy, nothing screaming celebrity, just discipline, structure, and routine. And that mattered, because Holmes built his career on being reliable when everything around him was live, risky, and chaotic. His first real break came in 1979 at Ulster Television, working on Farming Ulster. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't national, but it was real broadcasting. He learned to think fast and speak to people naturally, not perform at them. From there, he moved into sports coverage, grinding through live TV pressure and sharpening his craft the hard way. By 1982, he was anchoring Good Evening Ulster. That was a serious step up. He wasn't just reading scripts anymore. He was shaping conversations and becoming a trusted face in Northern Irish homes. He didn't box himself into one lane. He hosted pageants, specials, and live events, switching between serious and light without losing credibility. When he left Ulster Television in 1986 for the BBC in Manchester, it wasn't running away, it was leveling up. On open air, he was suddenly speaking to millions, not thousands. Then came 1993, GMTV, the launch of its very first broadcast. Morning TV is brutal. You're live, it's early, and the country is barely awake. Holmes thrived in that space. He became part of people's daily rhythm. Steady, sharp, dependable. Even when backstage tension made headlines, including a public falling out with Anthea Turner, he stayed grounded. When he left GMTV in 2005, he didn't sugarcoat it. He said the show had drifted from real news into too much celebrity fluff. Straight talk, no filter. 6 months later, Sky News brought him onto Sunrise. Again, early mornings. Rotating co-hosts. Same steady tone. Over the years, he covered everything. Snooker, darts, horse racing, tennis, quiz shows, panel shows, faith programs like Songs of Praise, and game shows like Jet Set. He wasn't chasing prestige. He was chasing consistency. When he joined This Morning in 2006, he leaned into what he did best. Making live TV feel natural but safe. That energy peaked when he began presenting alongside Ruth Langsford. On screen, they looked easy and believable. Shows like Gift Wrapped and How the Other Half Lives turned their real-life relationship into a brand. For viewers, it felt seamless. For Holmes, his identity became tied to that partnership. Behind the scenes, the industry shifted. In 2020, Holmes lost a tribunal case over his freelance status under IR35 rules. Suddenly, he wasn't just defending a contract, he was defending his worth. He called himself one of the best live presenters in the country. Agree or not, the confidence was loud and clear. Radio was always his other lane. From downtown radio in the late 80s to Radio 5 Live, Magic, Radio 2, and Talk Radio, he used that space to speak longer and dig deeper. On radio, his opinions came through raw, without studio gloss. It was less polished, more him. By 2022, he joined GB News, launching a breakfast show with Isabel Webster. He described it as a place where he felt valued again, a place where journalism came first and conversations felt real. Now, after decades of being the steady voice reading headlines, Holmes is speaking as the headline himself. And when he talks, the story doesn't move forward, it moves backward, to the part he kept guarded for years. Eamonn and Ruth's relationship didn't start as a flashy public romance. It began quietly in 1997 after meeting through mutual friend Sally Mean. There was no rush, no big announcement. Holmes had separated from his first wife, Gabrielle, 2 years earlier, and privacy mattered. Not secrecy, respect. That early decision set the tone for everything that followed. When they began dating, they kept it out of the spotlight. Later, Ruth said his insistence on privacy made her feel secure, not hidden. It showed her the kind of man he was, and the kind of father he wanted to be. That mattered. 2 years passed before they went public. By then, the foundation was strong. In 2002, they welcomed their son Jack, a moment that shifted their world. Ruth later revealed she found out she was pregnant just 1 day before her godson Charlie's christening. Holmes was away, so she first told her best friend Sam, Charlie's mother. It was intimate and personal, one of those life moments that doesn't need an audience to feel huge. By 2006, 9 years into their relationship, their personal and professional lives fully merged. Holmes joined Langsford on the Friday edition of This Morning. What started as a private bond slowly became a public brand, and once the spotlight locks in, it doesn't let go easily. Langsford was already a firm fixture on This Morning, part of the show since 1999 and quietly its longest-serving presenter. When Holmes joined her, they never pretended working together was effortless. Ruth admitted it had its challenges. Mixing marriage and live TV? That's pressure. Still, she said they managed it most of the time. As the years rolled on, they became one of daytime television's most recognizable duos. They hosted Gift Wrapped, How the Other Half Lives, Lose a Stone in 4 Weeks, Eamonn and Ruth's 7-Year Itch, and Do the Right Thing. Their chemistry wasn't just natural, it became their brand. The line between real life and television slowly blurred. Holmes joked that quitting TV wasn't an option because viewers wouldn't allow it. It sounded playful back then. Looking back, it felt deeper, like television had become part of their marriage itself. 13 years after they met, and 5 years after Holmes' divorce from Gabrielle was finalized, they married at Elvetham Hall in Hampshire. Soon after, they bought a 6-bedroom home in Weybridge, Surrey, reportedly worth £3.2 million. It looked like everything had locked into place: success, security, permanence. Years later, during her time on Strictly Come Dancing, Ruth described their marriage as built on understanding. She said Holmes would tease her first but surprise her just as quickly with thoughtfulness. Even during the chaos of competition, she believed he understood her completely. That belief, she said, was why they worked. Then 2020 hit, and everything shifted. In November, Holmes and Langsford were suddenly dropped from This Morning, replaced by Alison Hammond and Dermot O'Leary. The move reportedly left them furious. Professionally, it stung. Personally, it created distance. Ruth stayed at ITV on Loose Women. Holmes went in a different direction, joining GB News for a breakfast show. For the first time in years, they weren't moving in sync. And the gap between them wasn't just about work anymore. By May 2024, the silence cracked. They confirmed their marriage was over and that they were divorcing. A spokesperson said work commitments had taken them in different directions. The statement was calm, controlled, polished. They aimed to remain friends. They wanted it amicable. An official message for fans was promised. But behind that careful wording was the collapse of something once built on patience, privacy, and shared purpose. And behind that collapse was another truth: pressure that had been building for years. Because while the split sounded professional, something else had been wearing Holmes down long before the marriage ended. And it wasn't headlines. It was his health. For years, viewers saw strength. What they didn't see was how much of it came at a cost. Behind the steady voice and familiar presence, Holmes was fighting a body that was slowly failing him. Ruth stood by him through it, supportive, hopeful, steady. But as the marriage ends, those health battles no longer feel like background noise. They feel central. Holmes never hid his struggles. Sometimes he spoke with humor, sometimes with brutal honesty. Long before the relationship unraveled, his body was already under pressure. Years of acute pain led to a double hip replacement in 2016, a 3.25-hour operation after constant discomfort. He compared it to live TV. Nerves before, none once it began. The night before surgery, people gave him emotional tributes, almost like he was saying goodbye. When he woke up to a smiling surgeon, his wife, and even a lunch menu, he joked it proved he was still alive. That humor became his shield. In 2018, on the day of his son Declan's wedding, he was struck with shingles. His face became swollen and marked. Years later, on Loose Women, he showed photos and explained how shingles can lie dormant and strike without warning. Looking at the images, he compared himself to Quasimodo. It was shocking and deeply personal. But 2021 marked a harsher decline. Out of nowhere, severe back pain hit and refused to ease. It escalated fast. Soon he needed a walking stick. The diagnosis: 3 slipped discs affecting his right leg. It explained the pain, but didn't fix it. By the end of that year, he admitted the toll was heavy. Some days he couldn't walk at all. He couldn't bend down. Basic tasks became impossible. He relied heavily on Ruth. He said the loss of independence hurt as much as the condition itself. Scans confirmed the protruding discs. Still, he hoped it might settle on its own. It didn't. Epidural injections gave partial relief, not a solution. Surgery, he hoped, would be the answer. But doctors found other spinal and nerve issues first. After a year of severe pain, he was crushed. In September 2022, he stepped away from GB News for spinal surgery. It was supposed to be the turning point. Instead, recovery was brutal. Even with intense physiotherapy, mobility stayed limited. Depending on others for simple tasks felt humiliating. Sitting still after physio filled him with guilt, as if resting itself was a burden. The surgery weakened his left leg. Then disaster struck. Just over 2 weeks into recovery, he fell backwards down 18 stairs at his Weybridge home, crashing onto a stone floor. The fall could have been fatal. He suffered a broken shoulder and more damage to his legs. It was a massive setback. Still, the challenges kept coming. A year later, in September 2023, he underwent a spine and neck stretching procedure. He admitted he still couldn't walk properly. He couldn't run, couldn't move freely. Some days, all he could do was sit and watch television. By 2024, recovery wasn't just part of his life, it was his life. Daily physiotherapy became normal. A cane, sometimes a wheelchair, became part of life. Ruth supported him in public, but she admitted something had shifted. She said there might have to be acceptance, that he may never be 100% again. She spoke about hope, but also about how long-term care tests even the strongest families. Now that the marriage is over, those words hit differently. What once sounded strong now feels heavy. The breakup was explained with soft language: health struggles, career pressure, drifting apart. It sounded calm, almost gentle. But behind closed doors, the real ending didn't creep in slowly. It exploded in one moment Ruth was never meant to hear. Reports say the turning point happened inside their Surrey home. Eamonn thought he was alone, relaxed, chatting on the phone. He didn't know Ruth was elsewhere in the house, but she could hear him. And what she heard wasn't casual talk. It was described as intimate, personal, cozy. Ruth was said to be horrified. She confronted him right away. The shock went both ways. Eamonn reportedly had no idea she was there. But once she revealed she had heard everything, the damage was done. For Ruth, it wasn't just a conversation. It came after years of standing by him through surgeries, chronic pain, and loss of mobility. She had cared for him when he struggled to move. To then hear that kind of exchange, it felt like betrayal. A real blow. And that wasn't the end. Sources claim the marriage didn't collapse instantly. It staggered forward, bruised and fragile. Then weeks later, Ruth reportedly found messages on his laptop. This time, it wasn't overheard. It was written proof. Insiders described it as the final straw. The timeline tells its own story. The phone call argument allegedly happened in April. The laptop discovery came weeks after. Soon after that, the public statement dropped. Calm, polished, controlled. They confirmed the marriage was over and divorce was underway. No drama, no detail, just a full stop after 27 years together. Fans were stunned. 14 years of marriage, nearly 3 decades as a couple. Gone. Not long after the separation became public, Eamonn moved on. He confirmed a relationship with Katie Alexander. Ruth, meanwhile, stayed publicly single. She focused on friends, work, and rebuilding her life, even celebrating her birthday with a girls' getaway. For months, Ruth stayed quiet. Then she finally spoke in her first post-split interview. She described the breakup as painful and difficult. A relationship that shaped most of her adult life had ended. But there was no bitterness in her tone, just strength. She said when a relationship breaks down, marriage or friendship, you reach a crossroads. You either crumble or move forward. She chose to move forward. She admitted she wasn't happy the marriage ended, but she had accepted it. Acceptance, she said, allowed her to embrace being single again, to make choices just for herself, not to fix anything, not to compromise, just her. Sharing a 23-year-old son, Jack, with Eamonn, she spoke carefully and respectfully. She also addressed the pressure of divorcing in public. Breakups are painful in private, she explained. Under constant public attention, it's even harder. But she acknowledged that scrutiny comes with the job. When asked about being alone, she was honest. She's fine being alone, but not forever. There's a difference between enjoying a quiet weekend and realizing every weekend could be that way. That takes adjustment. And here's where the story shifts. While Ruth focused on moving ahead, Eamonn began looking back. Almost 2 years after the split, he finally reflected publicly. Not with anger, not with blame, with regret. In a new interview, he admitted that if he could change one thing, he would have found a better balance between career and personal life. That was it. No scandal, no long speech. Just one quiet sentence that says everything. When asked about his biggest regret, he didn't answer directly. And sometimes what isn't said speaks the loudest. Their separation was announced in March 2024 after 14 years of marriage. Their relationship stretched back to the late 1990s and brought one son. For decades, their lives were linked on and off screen, so when it ended, it felt bigger than a breakup. It felt like the end of an era. Since then, they've walked very different paths. Eamonn began dating relationship counselor Katie Alexander. Ruth leaned into independence. She admitted that at first everything felt dark and overwhelming, but over time fear faded. What replaced it surprised her: confidence, calm, even excitement. She said she isn't against love or marriage again. She just isn't chasing it. The real discovery? Realizing she is strong and capable on her own. While Ruth rebuilt emotionally, Eamonn continued battling physically. After the separation, he underwent more procedures, including major spinal treatment. He admitted the year had been brutal. He said he had effectively been disabled for over a year, relying on carers for basic tasks. He described it as humiliating and humbling, though he expressed gratitude for the support. Ruth, meanwhile, started counseling and still attends. She described therapy as grounding, a space without judgment. Someone who listens, someone who helps unpack why certain moments hurt the way they do. Even knowing herself well, she said therapy helped her process everything calmly. Professionally, she's thriving. Her career remains strong, and she has hinted she would return to This Morning if asked, especially alongside Rylan Clark. She called him a TV son, someone she adores. The door clearly isn't closed. There have even been lighter moments. During a loose women chat about health and marriage, a panelist joked that men live longer when married, while women live longer when they're not. Ruth laughed and replied, "Good to know." It was playful, but it landed. Despite everything, the connection between her and Eamonn hasn't vanished entirely. Over Christmas, he publicly expressed respect for her and said she deserved happiness. The words were simple, but meaningful. That same holiday, he spent time with Katie in North Yorkshire. Still using a walking frame, he admitted mobility remains a daily challenge, but he's aiming for improvement by 2026 and is even considering stem cell treatment. The fight in him isn't gone, so this chapter doesn't end with shouting or spectacle. It ends with reflection. A man admitting imbalance, a woman discovering strength. Two lives once moving side by side, now on separate roads. No fireworks, just consequences, and choices that can't be undone.